When life resists you, you get stronger and you get wiser and you turn into something that can be kept and that will last.
You know, every person watching this broadcast and every person talking right now, including me, have been crushed.
Absolutely.
Okay? It happens. Help us understand that unique dichotomy of what God's doing with this crushing. It's a real tough thing to explain, and I want to hear you.
First of all, I learned is never try to make sense of it while you're in it.
Okay?
You have to focus on surviving it, not understanding it. Because the crushing is so intense and so personal and so deep that you only understand in retrospect. When you look back at it, you say it was good for me. It's over now. It was good. Well, not while you're in it, but after you're through with it, it was good for me that I've been afflicted. The idea of crushing the grape in its original state, it would only last one season. It would rot on the vine. But if you crush it and let it ferment, it would last for hundreds of years.
My goodness.
And there's something that happens to us when we are crushed that gives us resilience and tenacity that we wouldn't have. I was writing on that legal pad, and the Lord showed me a vision of people stomping on grapes, and then took me to the text that the seed of the woman would bruise the head of the serpent, and the serpent would bruise his heel. And when I saw Christ's bruised heel, they looked like the heels of somebody who'd been stomping on grapes. And I started to realize that on the cross, he stomped on everything that was against me. He moved every obstacle that was contrary to me. And that even though I go through things now, that he has borne the grief and carried the sorrows of it. He went before me to lighten the load of it and still suffered me to go through it. And I'll tell you why. What we don't realize is that it is exactly the pain we had that made us who we are.
My goodness.
It is exactly the neglect or the absence or I am so grateful for the teacher that said I couldn't write because that's why I could. It is the thing that opposes you in the weight room that causes you to build muscles.
There it is.
You know, the resistance training, you know. I don't need the weights to cooperate. I need them to resist me.
My goodness.
So when life resists you, you get stronger and you get wiser and you turn into something that can be kept and that will last. And I think it's so important when you talk about the suffering church in the book of Revelations at Smyrna, and he talks about frankincense and myrrh, the incense was roots that were crushed, and the aroma only escaped as the roots were being crushed. And there is an aroma that escapes your heart when you're crushed. People who have not been crushed cannot access their emotions well.
Wow.
They cannot verbalize or enunciate feelings well, and sometimes it's dangerous to give power to people who have no empathy. What we need is somebody who can be touched. That's why Christ came, so that he could be touched by the feeling of our infirmity. Look at Jesus coming to the tomb, to the graveside of Lazarus. Why? I mean, he comes in there and cries about somebody he knows he's going to raise. He knows how the story's going in. Why are you crying, Jesus? Mary's crying because she thinks her brother's gone. Martha's crying because you were not there. You come in the room with these people that are crying and you sit with them and you cry with them. Oh, that I may know him in the fellowship of his suffering. There's a fellowship, a koinonia, a camaraderie that happens when you walk in a room with people that are weeping and you dare to weep with them. We have fellowship. We drink from the same cup together. When we have fellowship in the suffering and we know that we are not alone,